astronaut, and I'm here to tell you about today's special guest. He is originally from Stockton, California. He holds degrees in electrical and computer engineering. He worked at Lawrence Livermore Laboratories, performing a wide array of scientific and material sciences assignments, and he also did the same thing at Johnson Space Center before being selected by NASA as an astronaut in 2004. Now, he flew on STS-128, and on that mission the crew performed a crew rotation at the International Space Station, and they also transferred equipment to the station. And our guest is here to tell you about that and to answer your questions. So please welcome our special guest, astronaut Jose Hernandez.
How you guys doing? Good. Happy to be here. And I know you guys speak English, right? I know you come from Mexico, but we're gonna speak English, okay? And if you have any questions or I say any word you don't recognize, let me know and we'll get back to it. But just want to say that this is designed to be an intimate meeting with you guys, in the sense that usually we have about 25, 30, no more than 30 people, right, Thomas?
40.
But no more than 40 people here, and today is even better because there's only a few of you. So that means you get the whole time to ask any question about being an astronaut, about going into space. And as Thomas said, my name's Jose Hernandez. I know he knows my story because he has my book, my kid's book that I wrote in Mexico, and that one sells in Mexico. We have another one just like this. We have another one just like this that's bilingual. That's sold here in the United States. Yes, and they may sell it here. I know they were selling it here yesterday. I'm not sure if they sold out or not, but they were selling it here yesterday. But then I have two other books too: a middle reader book, From Farm Worker to Astronaut, and then the adult book called Reaching for the Stars. Okay, so now, as you guys may know, my parents come from Mexico. But I was born and raised in California, and my parents were migrant farm workers, so they would come to California for 9 months from Michoacan, and they would go to 3 different parts of California and work following the harvest of the crops, and that's why I was born here, because I was born during harvest month, and I have there's 4 of us. I have 2 brothers that were born during the winter, so they were born in La Piedad, Michoacan. And so as a kid, as a 10-year-old kid, I remember seeing the very last Apollo mission. That was with Gene Cernan on Apollo 17. And if you remember history, or if you read your history, you'll see that Apollo 17 was the last mission. And Gene Cernan was the last man to walk on the moon. And so if you could imagine a 10-year-old kid watching a black and white TV and hearing Gene Cernan and seeing him on the moon, and then going outside, it was a cold December night, and going outside, seeing the moon, and then seeing Gene Cernan, I said, man, that's what I want to be. I want to be an astronaut. And ever since then, I went ahead and studied, worked hard, went to graduate school, and never gave up, because NASA rejected me not once, not twice, but 11 times. It wasn't until the 12th time that I got selected to be a NASA astronaut. Now, when you train for 2 years before you're even eligible to be assigned to a mission. During those 2 years, you learn how to fly jets, you learn how to operate the space shuttle, you learn how to operate the International Space Station. You have tests every Friday for 2 years. You have a written test, you have an oral test, you have a simulation test, and you gotta pass everything. Wow. So it's like having finals for 2 years in a row. It's tough. And then after that, you work on a technical assignment. My technical assignment was coming here a week and a half before each launch and preparing the vehicle from the inside, calibrating the equipment, laying out the cockpit for the pilots and everything according to the mission, And I did that, and then we would strap in the crew, and then they would blast off into space. I did that for another year, and then I got assigned to a mission. Once you get assigned, you get pulled away from your technical job. Now you're in a big office with all 7 crew members, all 7 of us. You see the names there in the mission patch. All 7 of us in one office, and we trained for 18 months, a year and a half. We trained for a 14-day mission, a year and a half, and then finally we blast off into space. In my mission, I was the flight engineer, STS-128. It was the second to last mission to finish the construction of the International Space Station. So we took over 7 tons of equipment up into space, installed it both inside and outside of the station. When we install it outside, we do what's called EVAs, extravehicular activities, which is spacewalks. And in groups of 2, they go out and they install pumps, ammonia tank assemblies, antennas, and cameras. And so there's a lot of work they did outside and even more work inside. Because we were kind of like, since we were the second to last complete, we didn't put any outside structure. We were kind of like the move-in guys. You know, once everything's built, you gotta put in the appliances, right? And you gotta put in the shelves and all, and that was us. We had to put all that stuff in over the course of 14 days. So we did that, and it was a very, very exciting trip. Today, at what time is it that on the Universe Theater?
We'll be doing the universe at 11 o'clock.
Okay, at 11 o'clock, make sure you go to the Universe Theater, because I'm going to be giving a talk there, and I'll be showing a video, a flight video, and you'll be able to see the shuttle blast off and everything, but I'll be talking about everything that you know, how I grew up as a kid. You're going to see all that, and so make sure you come at 11 and see that. Yeah, and then at 12, is it at 12 or 12:15?
12.
At 12 in the gift shop, 12 in the gift shop upstairs, I'll be available for pictures, autographs, and everything, okay? So
Autographing your book as well if it didn't sell out?
if it didn't sell out, yeah, I know we had plenty of the adult book, which is Reaching for the Stars. I think we had plenty of those. The ones that were being sold out were the kids book and the middle reader book. But I think we have plenty of Reaching for the Stars. And I'm excited because this is the first time, this is like my 3rd time I showed up, and I kept telling these guys, hey, I got a book, I got a book. And finally they got the book, so that's great. I appreciate that, Thomas. And so now the kids can take my story and read it. But more importantly, we just got through filming a movie with Amazon. Amazon liked my story. They asked if they could make it into a movie. And there's an actor named Michael Peña who's playing me.
Very nice.
He's not as good looking as me, but you know, that's okay. Michael Peña. He comes in Narcos and everything, and he's a good actor. He's a good actor. And so he's gonna, so we just finished filming the movie. And if I do not make the director's cut on the floor, you'll see me come in the movie as in a cameo. So I'm gonna make. I feel.
What's your cameo?
It was my old job, closeout crew.
Oh, okay.
I was in a white suit. I was the
look for you.
closeout crew. So they didn't show me strapping in. They just showed me adjusting Michael Peña's helmet and everything.
When will it air?
It should air in probably like in October. On October. So on the Amazon platform. Yeah, so you guys have Amazon, right? So anyway, so because we are so anxious to ask questions, you know, I think I should stop talking now and answer all the questions. I know these guys have a lot of questions.
They wrote a book of questions.
What's that?
They wrote a book.
Oh, yeah, that's all right. That's all right. We're here till like 10:45, right? 10:40, something like that. So the purpose is to have this great interaction with you guys and make sure you walk away satisfied that you got to ask anything you wanted of an astronaut. And so here we are. And then I'll talk to you a little bit about what I'm doing now, or you guys can ask that question. Don't forget it, because I'm gonna slip in some commercials in there. I already did the movie, the books, but there's other things.
Amazon.
And I know there's wine. Remind me about wine. All right. All right. All right. So, any questions you guys want to ask? So I think she's being very nice, and she's yielding the floor to the first guy. Un abrazo, luego te sientas. Un abrazo y te sientas. There you go. All right. All right. So go ahead.
Okay, what was your biggest question?
Me gusta más.
Tell me in English. Remember, I told you I wanted you to practice your English.
Practice your English.
Practice.
God, this mirror is fun.
This book?
It's good. It's so fun.
This book is so fun. You like it, huh? But do you have a question? Do you have a question?
Pero como eres mexicano, quiero hablar en español.
Okay, habla español and I'll translate it. Okay.
Pero como tú eres hay muchos astronautas como tú que son diferentes, pero este libro me gusta. Oh,
Pero ¿qué pregunta tienes?
Mi pregunta es, ¿por qué escribiste este libro?
¿Por qué escribí este libro? His question is, why did I write this book? Lo escribí, I wrote it porque sabía que le iba a gustar a los niños. I knew kids would enjoy this book.
Sí, el primero no les gustaba.
El primero no, ¿verdad? Then, and I wanted to explain to kids, quería explicar a los niños que it doesn't matter where you start, de donde inicias. It matters where you end up. And exactly, and with hard work, anything is possible in life, including reaching for the stars, and I'm living proof of that. So that's why I wrote the book, is to inspire kids to reach their maximum potential, so that you too can aspire to be an astronaut, a doctor, a lawyer. ¿Qué hace tu papá? What does he work in?
¿Qué hace tu papá? ¿Desarrollador?
Sí, él es un ingeniero en telemática.
Developer?
No, I work in
Y yo también.
sales.
In sales. Okay. See, you could be your own company. You could be your own businessman.
Última misión a Nanuna en YouTube.
Okay,
Yo
good.
vi también.
Oh, good. Okay, another question.
Another question. A ver qué pregunta tienes tú.
You have a question, Mija? How does it feel to float in space?
A ver qué nos conteste. Piensa.
¿Cómo se siente?
Okay, she's saying, how does it
Es una
feel
cuestión.
to float in space? And I'll tell you, it's the greatest feeling in the world, because you feel like Superman up there. Literally, you could fly. You're kind of flying, because you're always floating. And if you want to get to one place to the other, you just push yourself against the wall and do your best Superman impersonation.
Eres tú con esta
Yeah,
playera.
exactly. And you do your best Superman impersonation, and you feel like a superhero up there. And the best part is sleeping in space. Sleeping in space, you float. So when you sleep, there's no mattress, right? You roll out a sleeping bag. You tie the four corners of the sleeping bag. You slide in. You zip yourself up. You take your hands out, and you don't even need a pillow, right? Because if I was giving you a boring talk and you would be falling asleep, what happens to your head? Goes down, right? Well, in space, that doesn't happen. So that means you don't need a pillow. And then you also don't have any pressure points in your body. So space is the best mattress in the world. Es el mejor colchón del mundo, el espacio. Because so your body rests. There's no pressure points. And you could buy the most expensive mattress here, and it's not going to be as good as sleeping in space. So it's pretty cool. That was the best part I enjoyed, is sleeping in a zero pressure mattress. Ande.
Escuché, bueno, I heard that the first man that
porque es mexicano.
que se hizo vivir en los pañales
Uh-huh.
fue Shepard.
Shepherd? I don't know about that.
Ay,
She said that she heard that the first man to ever do number one, number one,
Porque antes
in
no-
Pampers
no tenía-
was Alan Shepard.
That was on the launch pad. That was when the countdown went a lot longer than they expected.
Yes.
His bladder got
Yes.
filled, and he had to do that.
Relieve himself.
He didn't have Pampers.
Oh, he didn't?
There was no.
Oh, pero no tenía
There
Pampers,
was
eh?
no provision made for that because they
Por
didn't
eso
expect it.
empezaron a usar los Pampers.
Ahora,
He has a world record. The
Yeah.
first one ever.
y hay muchos astronautas que se marearon. ¿Usted se mareó arriba?
Yeah, there's a phenomenon called space adaptation sickness, and it's basically getting car sick. Cuando te mareas, estás atrás del carro y te mareas, que está caliente, estás haciendo por curvas. Así se siente uno. It's like getting car sick. You get up there, and you feel your stomach feels a little queasy and a little flush. You begin sweating on your forehead. So it's on for about like a half a day, and then you get used to it, and then you're okay. Some people revisit their lunch. It didn't get that bad for me. One of our crew members did. I won't say who, but it wasn't me.
Ajá. Pero usted
But
no.
then, yeah. But you do, and then the opposite happens when you come back home. When you come back home, you also get a 1G adaptation sickness, and I got that also. And I gotta confess, when I got down, I was already down on the ground. We were in the Astro van. They were taking out my suit, and I did throw up because what happened was, and I'll tell you why I shouldn't have, but I did. Was we landed at Edwards Air Force Base, and it was August. It was hot, and as soon as we land, we start turning off systems. And it's about an hour and 15 minutes before they come for us. So it starts getting hot in this, and you're in this suit, in this orange suit, it starts getting hot. And I remember they finally got us out. We went into the Astro van. And to get out of that suit, it's a zipper in the back. So you have to get out, put the ring over your head, and then get out. And I remember I was feeling sick already, right? And if I had gotten out the first time, I would have been okay. But I remember I tried getting out, and they were trying to pull it out. I must have broad shoulders. I don't know. Maybe that's I like to think that's the case. I couldn't get out, and we were struggling. And so I'm inside the suit, and it's hot and clammy. And finally, I have to go back and put it back on and breathe because it's so hot. And then as soon as I did that, I said bag, and I got the bag, and I had to throw up. And after I finished, I finally got out. But yeah, I did lose my cookies on the way when I got
Yo le
back
quiero
home.
decir algo.
A ver, what's the question?
Pues, mi cuestión es, ¿por qué no podemos necesitar a moedas en el espacio para dormir?
Porque why don't we need pillows in space to sleep? Porque we're in zero gravity, right? Cero gravedad, and you don't need to lay down. Wherever you put your head, así vas a estar dormido. If you put your hands like this and you fall asleep, your hands stay like that.
Para
It's
eso
pretty cute.
necesitarías
So I got
estar
some pretty
amarrado.
neat pictures of my crewmates doing their Frankenstein impersonation as they were
Y yo
asleep.
necesito estar amarrado.
Yeah. Esta niña, ¿cómo se llama?
Andrea.
Andrea, tú has estado muy silenciosa. You gotta ask a question. Come on.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes.
I remember in school that we were like doing a question book that they say. The question was, does universe have a sound? And I don't know if universe have a sound. I haven't been in space. So my question is, does universe have a sound?
Well, it all depends where you're at in the universe, right? If you're in the vacuum of space, there's no noise. In other words, you can't be out in space without a spacesuit. But if you could, and you open your mouth and you try talking, nothing will come out because sound that you're hearing right now travels through air. It needs that medium to When there's no vacuum, the sound, there's no way it could travel. So in space you can't. Now if you go to a place like Mars where there is a little bit of atmosphere, you probably can hear sound, but you still need a helmet and all that. So a lot of people say, oh, so when the astronauts go out in space, it must be very quiet in their spacesuit, but it's not, because you got fans in there, you got the crackling of the radio, so it's not really quiet like how they do. I know they had a scene in Gravity where it said, "Oh, it's so quiet" and all that. No, you hear the humming of the of the fans because it's cooling you and circulating the air. So, but yeah, in the vacuum of space, sound doesn't travel. If you do this, you're not gonna hear it. But if you're in the space shuttle or in the International Space Station, you got air. So I can talk to my crewmates, and that's not a problem. Okay? All right, another question.
Otra pregunta, hija.
Yo quiero, ¿sabes? ¿Por qué los sacos de dormir son necesarios para dormir en el espacio?
¿Por qué los sacos de
Dormir son necesarios.
Yeah, why are the sleeping bags necessary to sleep in space? Well, they're necessary because, first of all, when you fall asleep, you could be floating anywhere. And you want to be careful you don't accidentally push the abort button while you're sleeping, right? That would be bad. So what do? You get the sleeping bag and you tie the four corners so that you're fixed in one place. And you slide in there and you zip yourself so you don't float away. And then that you sleep, like I said, it's the best sleep I've ever gotten in my life.
I have a question.
Yes.
Which is harder? I mean, the feeling of going into space or coming back?
I think the feeling of going into space is more
The
dynamic,
thrust.
more dynamic, because if you if you think about it, when you go to space, it only takes 8.5 minutes, and you go from 0 to 17,500 miles an hour in 8.5
No con
minutes.
video.
Yeah, and the way it looks, just picture this, okay? You're sitting in a chair like this, but you're sitting up. And the countdown begins. 3, 2, 1, 0. When you hear 0, you hear this roar of the 3 engines of the shuttle light up. You feel a gentle vibration. And then about a half a second later, the 2 white solid rocket boosters light up. When those turn on, you know you're going somewhere because you can't turn those off. But you know they're on because all of a sudden the noise level goes up in order of magnitude. The vibration starts shaking like it's a 9.5 earthquake. And the thing they don't teach you in training is what happens right before blast off. Because right after the solid rocket booster lights up, and you're saying, okay, what's going on? And all this vibration, they teach you all that. But what happens is the shuttle sort of rocks about 3 degrees towards your back, towards your head. And when it starts doing that, you say, oh my God, this whole thing's gonna fall down and explode. But as soon as it starts rocking about 3 degrees, then you feel the push on your back. And that's liftoff. And they do that because they want to clear the tower, so it lifts off, and then you're off to the races. And then you go from 0 to 17,500 miles an hour. That's about 0 to 26,000 kilómetros por hora en 8 minutos y medio, 8.5 minutes. And how does that feel? That you start building as acceleration start. At first it's fun because it's like a best e-ticket ride Disneyland can offer. But then the pressure starts building across your chest, and it goes up to 3 Gs. 3 Gs, yeah. You can't even lift your hand up because the pressure's so, you can, but it's a lot of work. And I guess the equivalent to how it feels is, imagine you're lying here on the floor, and you put a thin piece of plywood on top of you. It doesn't weigh anything. Then you get 3 people that weigh the same as you do, and they put their foot on the plywood and no weight on it. That's T minus 0, right? Because all the weight's on the floor. And then these 3 people that weigh just like you do, over the course of 8.5 minutes, they're shifting their weight over. At 8.5 minutes, they're on the plywood and you're underneath. That's how it feels. So at 8.5 minutes, you're ready for that 500-pound gorilla to disappear. And it does when you reach MECO, main engine cutoff. Acceleration goes to 0. Gorilla disappears. Now you're kind of loosey-goosey in the seat. You have your seatbelt on so you don't float away. And now you're going around the world once every 90 minutes. Once every 90 minutes you go around the world. So that's pretty neat. Question?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Do you think that it was the work ethic instilled by your parents, the migrant workers, that helped you survive the until the 12th, when you finally got accepted as an astronaut? You know, having that great dream as a 10-year-old.
You know, I think you know, my parents empowered me. They validated the dream when I first wanted to be an astronaut. They said, of course you can do it. And for them to have done that, that was wonderful. I have a recipe that I'll share in the presentation that I'll share with you on as to that. I think that work ethic helped me get through college, graduate school, and be a hard worker working, okay? The part of giving up, I think, was kind of built into my plan, because everybody should have a plan A and a plan B, right? My plan B was, you know, okay, I want to go to college, I want to go to graduate school, and I said, what's the worst thing that could happen if I never get selected by NASA? Well, wanting to be an astronaut motivated me to go to college, motivated me to go to graduate school, motivated me to get a great job at Lawrence Livermore Lab, and I was doing what I love. So to me, reapplying didn't affect what I was doing already. So if it never occurred, sure, I would have been disappointed, but it wouldn't have been the end of the world, because, you know, coming from where I came from as a migrant farm worker, picking fruits and vegetables, cucumbers for 50 cents a bucket, to working in a world premier national laboratory, I mean, to me, that was already a win. So being an astronaut was only the cherry on top of the icing. And so I looked at it from that perspective. I said, you know, I'm gonna keep applying until NASA tells me don't apply anymore. And so I did. I just kept applying, and each year I would do something different to improve my chances. One year I became a pilot because I noticed everybody was pilots. Another year I became scuba diver rated. I got basic scuba diving, advanced scuba diving, scuba rescue, master scuba diving. Another year I accepted a job with the State Department from the lab, going to Russia to help in the nuclear non-proliferation arena. And it wasn't because I wanted to go to Siberia in the middle of winter, but it was because I had heard that the US and Russia signed an agreement to build the International Space Station. So I said, this job is gonna help me get there closer. And so I was also strategic with my career in terms of how I managed it. But yeah, I was enjoying the journey. That's the important part. That's one of my lessons in life that I tell people is whatever goal you pick, make sure you're enjoying the journey, because that's 95% of your time and effort.
Yeah. So, what was your motivation to be like an astronaut? I mean, you were like 12 years old when
Yeah.
you like
10 years old.
10 years old when you like wanted to be an astronaut. How did was your like your motivation?
My motivation was always, well, my parents shared a recipe of what you had to do, which I'll share at 11 o'clock. And it was, I think using that recipe, I just kept at it. And each time every year I applied and everything, I did something new, and it helped my career. So my motivation was whatever I was doing, it was right because it was helping my career. even if I wasn't an astronaut. I was enjoying what I was doing, and I was moving ahead at the lab. So I was doing very well. So my motivation is, hey, just keep doing what you're doing, and if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen, but you're doing great. And so that's why. That was my motivation. Yes, sir.
¿Por qué el Apolo se canceló?
Why did Apollo get canceled? Apollo got canceled because back then, going to the moon we wanted to beat the Russians, and we did, and so once we beat the Russians, I think the politics got in the way, and it became too expensive to continue going to the moon, so we stopped. But then NASA said we got to do low Earth orbit so that we can observe our world. And that's when they came up with the idea of building the International Space Station. So that's why they built the shuttle. The shuttle is not designed to go to the moon, so we never went to the moon with the shuttle. It was always designed to operate in low Earth orbit. And after 30 some odd flights, both with the shuttle and the Russian Soyuz, we built what is called the International Space Station, which we have in operation since 2000. We put the first module up, I believe, in 2000, and it's been operating. I think station complete was in 2010. We declared it complete, and it's been operating since. And I believe since 2000, and you correct me if I'm wrong, Thomas, since 2000, we've had at least one person up in space in a continuous fashion. And we're, what is it, 2022 now? For 22 years, we've always had at least one person up in space, which is pretty amazing. When I was up there were 6 astronauts on the International Space Station, and there were 7 of us on the shuttle. We got together and there was 13 of us representing 5 countries. So this is why we call it the International Space Station, because there's 16 international partners that participated in constructing the station. And those that participate, depending on how much they contributed to the construction, it's kind of like a timeshare. You guys know about timeshare, living in Cancun over there, right? It's like a timeshare. It's like the more you contribute to the construction, the more slots you get. Remember I said there's 6 slots there for the station? Well, the US and Russia were the biggest contributors. So that means Russia always gets 2 slots full time. The US gets 2 slots full time. So there's 2 other slots that get divided, timeshared in countries like Canada, Germany, Italy. Depending on how much they contributed, they can get a month or 2 months a year, or 3 months every 2 years, something. Whenever their time comes up, they send up their international astronaut, and so they do that, and that's how we participate.
¿Sabe? Yo quiero hacer un nuevo programa Apolo y quiero que el Apolo sea para. Yo quisiera que el Apolo tuviera una misión secreta. Y esa misión secreta va a llevar 3 astronautas y 2 cobras reales.
¿Y 2 qué?
Cobras.
Cobras. ¿Por qué es una cobra en el espacio?
Para ver si puede sobrevivir.
Oh, he wants to take a cobras up in
Nunca
space, see if they
mandaron una
survive.
serpiente.
Say serpent. Okay.
She knows all the pets that are in the space.
Uh-huh.
Tank and
Yeah.
everything.
We send a lot of ratoncitos. We send a lot of ratoncitos.
Pero nunca han
We
mandado
send a lot of mice, because we do, with the mice, we do a lot of bone density studies. Because being up in space, you lose about 1% bone density a month when you're up in space. And so we've taken them up there, brought them back, and see how supposedly the bone density increases once you get back on Earth, but the structure's a little different, and so they're trying to figure out if it when it recombines again, is it stronger or weaker than the original? And I haven't found the answer to that yet, but I'm sure that our scientists already know, because we took those mice up there, and somebody else brought them back down. Otra
Oh, you
pregunta.
took my side.
Yeah, we took mice up there.
Were you already married when you went up?
Yes, I was already married. I had 5 kids when I went up. So
How did you
I
work
had to
with
get
that?
my own
¿Me
personal
llevaron
insurance.
estas volador?
I had to get my own personal insurance to make sure that if something happened to me, the kids will have enough money for college. Because NASA doesn't pay you, you know, whatever life insurance
Squeak.
they offer to every employee, that's what astronauts get. You don't get anything special. So I had to go to Lloyd's of London and get a special insurance. And, you know, $15,000 later,
Le quiero decir algo.
I had my insurance policy.
¿En qué transbordador llevó a los ratoncitos?
What shuttle did I travel in? And I took the mice. He says I went on Discovery. Discovery. If you go to Washington D.C., you go to the Smithsonian. Allí está mi transbordador. My shuttle is there. However, if you just walk down here, you're gonna see it's Atlantis, right? You're gonna see Atlantis over here. And then
Este no es tuyo.
and then the third, pero es igualito.
Es
It's
el
the same.
doctor
It's the same.
Benanquín
But
Díaz.
then the third
Le voy a
one,
mostrar el doctor.
the
Benanquín.
third one is in Los Angeles, Endeavor. That's the third one. And then we have a mock-up.
Este es el de Kevin, ¿verdad?
Yeah. And then we have a mock-up that is called Enterprise. We just did a drop test with it, and that one's in New York.
¿En Enterprise?
Huh?
¿Cuál?
Enterprise.
Enterprise?
Enterprise. That one never flew in space, but they took it up and they released it to make sure it was flight worthy, right before they flew
¿Por
the
qué no
others.
fue en espacio? ¿Por
Otra
qué en
pregunta.
Enterprise no fue en espacio?
¿Cómo?
¿Por qué en Enterprise no fue en espacio?
No tenía turbinas. Era de prueba. Era de prueba.
Sí, pero vamos a usar.
Era el primero. That was the first one we constructed and we tested it.
¿Sabes? Voy a usar no para. Voy a usar en Enterprise para hacer una nueva misión en
Okay.
transbordador.
All right. He's gonna use the Enterprise to
¿Me
make a new
ayudarías,
mission.
me ayudarías en encontrar en Enterprise?
Okay. I'll pilot it for you once you build it. All right. That'll be good.
Are you involved in the Artemis?
Not really. You know, I left NASA when I went up into space. Remember, I told you I have 5 kids, right? When I came back home, they announced the retirement of the space shuttle fleet, and there were 4 more flights, but they were already assigned. So I knew I wasn't going to fly on the space shuttle again. And then I looked at how long it was going to take to build the next vehicle. And just like when they went from Apollo to the shuttle, well, I say history repeats itself. It was going to take about 10 years. It's taken a little longer now than 10 years. It's been 11 years now.
No,
And so I sort of did the math and I said, man, I'm going to be too old by then and I don't want to be flying a desk in the meantime. And NASA said, look, you don't have to leave. You can fly with the Russians. Which at first sounded exciting. I said, yeah, I could go with the Russians. Yeah, that's good because remember I worked in Russia a lot, so я понимаю по-русски язык, I learned Russian. So I was one of the most qualified in my class and I was gonna get assigned. But then I read the fine print. The training is for 3 years. And 80% of that training is in Russia. And then you go out for 6 months, which I didn't mind, and then you go on the road for 6 months. So that's a total of about 4 years where you're 85-90% of the time you're not at home. And I have, like a good Catholic, 5 kids. And the youngest at that time was 14. I mean, the oldest was 14, the youngest was 7. And I started doing the math. I said, you know, by the time I finish, my 14-year-old is going to be about 19 years old.
Aquí está la palabra que dijo.
I said, that's you know, unfair to my wife and my family. And so I didn't want to go there. I also saw a lot of my friends doing that. They were getting divorced left and right. And I said, yeah, no quiero con esa bronca, ¿verdad? Hay que cuidar la tienda, ¿no? Yeah, and so I respectfully declined, and I didn't want to take up space I didn't want to take up space in the astronaut office and just fly a desk. I figured, you know, other people have dreams too, and it's unfair for me to sit here 10 years in hopes of flying on the new vehicle later on. I said, I'm just gonna go ahead and leave. And so I left. I went back home to California. You know that 14-year-old? He's finishing his PhD in aerospace engineering at Purdue University. Why Purdue? He told me he made a list of all the astronauts where they graduated, and Purdue has graduated the most astronauts from any other university. So that's why my 3 girls have graduated college. The only one I have in school now, well, besides my oldest, but he graduates in May, is my youngest. He's in the 2nd year of mechanical engineering at UC Merced. So we're pretty proud of that. So I think I made the right decision. But now I have a vineyard. Now I have a vineyard. And you know, there's a saying, you can take the kid away from the farm, but not the farm from the kid. So tengo mi propio viñedo. I grow my own grapes, and I also make my own wine. I have my own line of wines. Here comes the cheap commercial. TierraLunaCellars.com. It's the best tasting wine an astronaut has made. I can say that because I'm the only one that makes it commercially. So if you want to taste good wine, you order it there. It arrives to your house.
Once you've had a dream for so long, so since you're a 10-year-old boy and you wanted to be an astronaut and you achieve that and you do the math and you're very strategic, how is it that you came up with your next goal or your next, what else do you want to accomplish?
Well, my next goal was to set up the environment much like my parents set up for me to make my kids successful and ensure that they all graduate from college, and that's what I'm doing right now. But then I said, okay, for me, you know, I always dreamt of being a farmer and owning my own land. So that's what the next logical step was. So I went ahead and did that. And then being a winemaker was just another challenge. You always look for the next challenge. I told my wife, either I'm gonna buy a vineyard and make wine, or you're gonna let me climb Mount Everest.
Huh?
And she said, no. She said, get the vineyard. So I did that. Yeah, you're always looking for the next challenge. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Now, at 11 o'clock, in about 15 minutes, Jose is going to be over at the University Theater. He's going to be giving a formal presentation that will include slides and video and some remarkable stories about his journey toward becoming an astronaut. He's got to go over and get ready for that show right now, so we will have an opportunity for autographs and photographs at 12 noon over on the 2nd floor of the gift shop. So we hope to see you back there as well. So we just want to thank you all very much for coming by and bringing such great questions with you. And we also want to thank our special guest, astronaut Jose Hernandez.
And thank you very much for coming. Appreciate it.
Thank you so
I
much.
hope you enjoyed. Where are you visiting us from?
Actually, in Dublin, Ireland.
Oh, from Ireland.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, that's great. And these folks are from Mexico,
Wonderful.
from the Yucatan Peninsula.
So this is the new international space.
Yes.
Yes.
Yo quiero decir algo.
Nos vemos, dime, porque ya me tengo que ir, ya me lleva.
Yo quisiera que tú fueras el director de la NASA.
Ah, thank you. I'm going to use you as a reference. He wants me to be director of NASA. I'm going to use you as a reference. Nos vemos allá entonces, ¿ok? A ustedes, muchas gracias. Y aquí tengo la carta, ¿eh? Thank you.
Guys.
Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you, ¿ok? Nos vemos, ¿eh? Nos vemos.